experience up here.
Where you from originally?
Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
So yeah, I just
you just hitting all the country locations, huh? Like,
man, I had to get out of Memphis. You probably saw it. They just shot
yeah, no,
dogs.
I saw that. I tell you, if you got to get out there so bad to go to PV, man, you on a mission.
Well, they paying for my school and I'm playing football.
Well, there you go. There you
that's
go.
what they doing.
See,
But
you got to remember, I was growing up where they did not pay for your school to play football there.
oh yeah, so I completely understand that.
I was there. I was there literally for all the bad old days.
Oh yeah, you was there for that 60-game losing streak.
My mother was on the task force that made the decision to suspend the football program and bring it back as non-scholarship.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, it had to be done.
They had a reason back then. So we're a little better now. We're finna go down and beat up on Dion December 4th. So check us out for that. You feel what I'm saying?
I got you.
But again, thank you so much. Literally, this is a milestone moment in my career. So please excuse my fandom just a little bit.
All good, man.
But this is my guy Anthony Herron, my manager, Chris Turlop. He just muted his camera. The biggest reason why we wanted to bring you on the program is to speak to the more intellectual side in terms of HBCU football, athletics, bridging the gap between that and PWI. Like I said, somebody that follows you or not know how well-rounded you are. I know that you can speak. We'll have athletes and coaches on, but we want, specifically your perspective to be about, how can HBCU athletics catch up to more of, normal FCS or FBS programs? So right. I know you're going to do that. Me and Anthony had talked about just the particular line of questioning that I want to go with you for. But besides that, anything you need from me? Any questions you got before we start?
No, I think we're all good.
Okay. Ant, you good? Chris, we good with your audio?
Yeah, we are rolling. Yeah, Bomani. So Eddie George is going to be another guest for the show. So is Darius Leonard. And then we had Reggie Stubblefield from Kansas State on. So that'll kind of be our group.
All right, cool.
But I'm rolling, so whenever y'all are ready.
Can I get permission to record, Chris?
Please. Yeah, it says you have it.
Please ask the host to give you permission to record.
Okay.
Bo Jason Goff here in Chicago is one of my guys. So,
okay.
I got to let him know we chop it up today too.
Oh yeah, all good. Tell him I said what's up.
I will.
I gave it to you, Josh, but if it's not, I'm rolling, so we're okay.
Yeah, it says I don't got it. So if you want me to edit it, just send me the file.
I'll send it
afterwards.
to you. Yeah,
okay.
I'll send it to you after.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bomani. Thank you again so much. It's so crazy.
No problem,
man. We're good to go.
Josh didn't have that reaction the first time he talked to me, but I can dig it.
Love you too, Ant.
Yeah, whatever, man. All right, we're rolling 3, 2. Back here on SiriusXM's special on the HBCU football landscape. One of our favorite opportunities we have is to talk to the man himself. Bomani Jones joins us now on ESPNU Radio. And as I was sort of preparing for this interview, Bo, it took me back to a simpler time, a time when I didn't have hair still, a time before you had hair. And it struck me a little bit, man, because it wasn't that long ago when you were still sans fro. The equivalency I would make is that I'm still at an age where I don't know how to swim, but I don't know the chances of getting slim. And did you know you had the potential for what you're rocking now?
No, I was just doing it when the pandemic first started because I thought I'd come out here looking like Clyde Drexler at the count or something like that. And it didn't quite look that ridiculous. So I was like, okay, like if I take it off, I got to take it all off. So I might as well ride this out.
And I'm thinking back to when I was first sort of becoming really familiar with your work, probably about a decade ago, and just seeing you on various platforms and thinking, all right, here's a skinny dude with a deep voice, but he's like challenging people to think critically with his opinions on sports and a variety of other topics. What was the point for you where you knew that you were going to consume or pursue some form of communicating as a profession?
I started writing the summer before my senior year of college. Like that was when I was just kind of freelancing, throwing stuff around. I started getting paid pretty quickly, like not like rich paid, but like paid at all, which is really, good fortune for young people. But it was like the nascent days of the internet. And so people were figuring it out and just kind of jumping on and taking some sorts of chances. And once I got started doing that, I knew that in some form or fashion, that was going to be what I was doing.
And you've gone a variety of routes here. You began at an HBCU at Clark Atlanta, made multiple stops along the way from there. And just in your kind of scholastic experience, what are some of the differences that you noticed in a variety of ways that you were just kind of pursuing education, growing up in a household that was really, valuing that at a high level?
So when you say the differences between what?
Between attending an HBCU like Clark Atlanta versus going out to LA to school, going to UNC.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the comparison's a little tricky because undergrad and grad school are such completely different animals that like on their faces it's kind of harder to compare. One thing I did learn is a lot of things that I thought were HBCU problems are really like small school problems. Like you go to a small school that's run by white people, there's a chance your refund check might not get to you on time when they say it was supposed to, like those kinds of things. But what I could glean about the undergraduate experiences at the PWIs that I went to versus CAU is that particularly for Black students, the HBCU was much more of a nurturing environment. And socially, it is a much better place for Black people to go just because your Blackness is not a novelty. Like once your Blackness becomes a novelty, people start viewing you through a very narrow lens. When you're at the HBCU, Blackness is the baseline. Therefore, the diversity of the student body is appreciated in a way that can't be appreciated in these other spaces. That was the biggest thing for me, was that part right there. Like people can't look at you and make the same assumptions on a Black college as they will at the other places just because Blackness doesn't mean anything. It means everything and nothing at the same time when everybody's Black.
You're talking to someone who went to the University of Iowa, so I'm very drastically familiar.
My brother and sister went to graduate school at Iowa, left from Southern and Spelman respectively, and then wound up in Iowa. That's a shift.
Yeah, a little cultural adjustment that happens with something like that. And as varied as your background, your experience in entertainment and sports and writing has been, is there something that stands out to you about that HBCU experience that has allowed you to be as versatile as you've been?
Yeah, the belief in me. Like the one thing about it is, as a Black student who is not exactly like everybody else, it's easier to find people at the Black school that are going to lean into the idea that you're special and that you can thereby do extraordinary things. Like it's hard to do extraordinary things and nobody tells you that you can, right? Because when you see whatever it is that everybody else is doing, that's probably going to be what you try to do because that's what there is to be done. You need people to kind of lean on you and give you the belief that you can do perhaps something that hasn't been done at all yet. That was the big thing for me at the Black college that I can't say with confidence would have happened if I had gone somewhere else.
Bomani Jones, our guest here on our HBCU football special here, ESPNU Radio, Anthony Herron. You can find me on Twitter at Big Ant Herron. You can, of course, find Bomani Jones at Bomani_Jones, he of HBO, ESPN, and The Right Time with Bomani Jones. And when I view your work, when I read your writing, it seems to consistently come from perhaps like an analytical perspective on things. I do wonder between whether it was your Atlanta time or your time in the Houston area in Texas. Was there a time where a younger Bomani Jones was a little more unreasonable in his perception of sports, like where fandom and fanaticism was a part of how you consumed?
Oh, yeah. But like one thing, though, for me always about sports, though, is and this is just my view on people and everything else. Like, I ain't got to lie about you to love you. Like if your team's sorry, your team's sorry. Your love can't be conditional. Like you talking yourself into why you do it. Like I rooted for the Braves when I was much younger, when they were absolutely dreadful. I didn't require for them to be good. It would have been helpful, but for whatever reason, I was cool with them being sorry too. Like that's the way I wrote it. So yeah, I used to be a bit more emotional about it, but it's kind of hard to keep that up when you do this all the time. And you wind up in places and positions where you actually have to meet the people that you talk about, and you learn enough about the people that like you think you hate to like look up and be like, wow, they really are just human beings. Ain't that something?
So there might be an old picture of you in like a Warwick Dunn jersey somewhere with your face painted at a Falcons game.
No, you ain't gonna find no face paint, but like you can find those. I have no problem acknowledging like levels of fandom that I possess. It just so happened that I spent a lot of time rooting for teams and entities that honestly, like the payoff wasn't always so great. Like the payoff was pretty good with the Braves. Like those others is just kind of like, what am I getting out of this?
There was not a mutual sort of benefit to the relationship.
Nah. They ain't half of me what I have for them.
As we look back to last year and see that, people like Mackenzie Scott, not very many people on the planet richer than her, but, herself and a number of other rich people, in some cases, rich white people giving money to HBCUs, making those types of donations. And historically, a lot of those donations have been conditional and had a lot of stipulations on on where the funds have to go. She didn't necessarily do that, but it does to me bring about the question of whether or not, I'm wondering through your opinion, do those donations, does it matter whether or not they come with stipulations? Does it even matter if the people giving them are doing it from sort of this altruistic sort of sense or just out of guilt?
I don't know. It kind of depends on what the stipulations are. Like, I feel like if I was going to make a significant donation to an institution, I would make stipulations about where the money would go. Like, I personally would have a clear idea of what I wanted that money to do. Like that's where I come from. Now, I mean, it's different because we're talking about white folks, and it really depends on exactly what the stipulations are that you're talking about. My thing about the donations, though, is they're a good start. Like, the imbalance financially that we're talking about with HBCUs versus their counterparts, it ain't the kind of gap that gets narrowed by people giving you money, unless it's going to be a lot of people giving a lot of money. Like, it's going to take more than one Mackenzie Scott, for example. So you can have Bill Gates and the Gates Millennial Scholars. That now is over 20 years ago. That didn't necessarily change. I mean, not even necessarily. That didn't change the overall condition and situation that the schools are in. And this is also, especially with state schools, as state legislatures across the country have slashed their funding for higher education because they figured out, wait a minute, we can just jack up the tuition and get money that way. So when I see those things, I am glad to see them. I think that it is certainly better to have people give money than to not give money. But I don't think that most people really understand just what the gap is in endowment, in budget, in revenues, all of these things, between the biggest and best HBCUs versus some white schools you might not even care about or think about. And that's before we start talking about the smaller HBCUs.
And for me, I've gotten to call the Bayou Classic football game for a number of years. I called the Atlanta Football Classic in the past. And every time I'm around an HBCU event, I'm left with the feeling that, man, if folks could be around this, not just more Black folks, but just the sort of conversation at large around HBCUs could be enhanced if folks got to experience kind of the joy and the love and the pageantry that some of those events have. Do you feel like there's, whether it's monetary or beyond that there's something that intrinsically needs to, fix, may not semantically be the right way to go about it, but to enhance just the HBCU experience and the perception of it?
I mean, I guess I'm not that concerned with the perception of the HBCU, to be honest, on the athletic level. And I think when we start talking about change, like, yeah, you'd like to see it bigger budgets used in responsible ways, right? Like, in order to do this, I think that would be great. But for me, I don't see the need for the HBCU to move toward professionalizing itself in the way that we've seen with the larger majority institutions, right? Like, those are professional football teams and basketball teams that exploit the players who participate in those activities. I don't think that the HBCU needs to become an exploitative force. Like, the question I think that people need to ask themselves about Black college athletics is, how well are these programs serving the students and serving the players? That, to me, is the measure of success. I feel the same way about the other programs, but that horse been done, left the barn, and I don't have the same emotional connection to those places that I have to these schools, and my feelings about those students are different than I would have about the larger majority institutions. And so when I think about these things and I look at it, I think people are getting way too caught up in, can we get some 4 stars? Can we get some 5 stars? What if all the best Black players came to the HBCU? I mean, I guess that would be cool, but if the HBCU is the place to serve those players the best, if the HBCU is best for them, we're asking them as the best to do something for the school, which is unfair because those schools as of yet haven't done anything for those guys. And so that's the biggest thing to me, is the only part that matters to me about HBCU athletics is, are these programs serving the best interests of the students and the best interests larger of the university?
Bomani Jones with us here, HBCU football special. Give us a sense, man. I wouldn't want to leave this interview without getting to know exactly some of these other projects you're beginning to work on. We've obviously seen you many years now on ESPN. Folks are downloading the right time everywhere they can find it. But your new project, or projects perhaps, with HBO, can you kind of give us a little look at what we may see next year?
Well, yeah, I've been working on Back on the Record with Bob Costas, which was we aired it 4 times in 2021, which is kind of a news magazine roundtable type of show. Like news magazine probably is the right way to put it because we didn't have that level of reporting. But I mean, doing a show with Bob Costas, man, that's a thing. And like Bob Costas calling me and being like, hey, do you want to be part of this? And you'll have your own, piece of real estate on it. That was great to have, and look forward to, working something out for 2022 to do that. And then in 2022, I will be hosting a show called Game Theory on HBO, which will be a bit of a look at sports. We're figuring out exactly the ways that we want to go about it in order to, make it happen and get the creative and everything set up. But it will be me with a level of institutional support that I don't think that I've had before, and a level of power in the direction of the program that I don't think I've had before. And so, I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be because I don't even know right now exactly what it's going to be. But we're hard at work and getting that figured out, and I can't wait for everybody to see it.
I know a lot of folks are excited about seeing it also. Real quick before we run here, the subject of coaching and elements like the Rooney Rule in the National Football League, we don't see it having success at the NFL level with head coaching, with coordinators, with executives, and certainly at the collegiate level, the landscape is far more dried out. But when you look at some examples of coaches who coach Black college football, coaches who've had immense success at HBCUs, do you think there's a way to bridge that gap more effectively to get, coaches like Dawson Odoms, who's had a lot of success at Southern and went on to another job, but in my opinion, qualified for a major college job and doesn't have those opportunities? How does that gap get bridged?
I mean, you got to go talk to white people about that, I feel like. Like when you think about it, as I recall, the only HBCU coach that I can think of who was able to parlay his Black college job into a FBS job was the white dude that was coaching at Alcorn.
Yeah.
Right? Like this isn't for us to fix. Like we keep trying to come up with these ways to kind of make people do what they are supposed to do and make it a lot easier on them. So like the Rooney Rule is basically saying you're not smart enough to find qualified applicants yourself. We're going to help you. We're going to tell you who they are and then put them directly in front of you. And that barely works, when the time comes. So like, I don't have a great answer for what exactly the solution is to fix it, but I know it's not our problem to fix.
Bomani Jones, the man himself, outstanding stuff. No surprise there, but really appreciate your time.
No problem, man. You guys have a good one.
More to come here at SiriusXM's ESPNU Radio.